I would like to thank Lord Dyson and his team for the report. It is welcome that the BBC accepts Lord Dyson's findings and...
So you're telling me that for 27 years, yes, 27 whole years, there was a secret hiding in Kensington Palace? Something even Prince William didn't know about? Oh, honey, grab your tea, because this one is beyond royal drama. In 2024, during what was supposed to be a simple renovation, William was casually walking through the palace when, bam. He steps into a room that had literally been untouched since the 90s, a tiny, sunlit study. And guess who it belonged to? His mother, Princess Diana. Now, this room wasn't just some old office. It had been locked, sealed, and basically frozen in time since Diana passed. The air was thick with memory, faded perfume, dusty books, handwritten notes still stuck to photos, her favorite fountain pen still there like she might walk in any minute. But then... William spotted something strange beneath her writing desk. An old mahogany desk with a hidden panel. Yes, a secret compartment. With a click, it opened. And inside, a diary. Not just any diary. Leather-bound, gold embossed with DMS 1996 stamped on the front. Diana's private journal, the one no one was ever meant to find. And when William opened it, he found something that would shatter him. He didn't just read words, he heard her. It was like Diana was speaking directly to him through the pages, her pain, her love, her fear. The entries were raw, unfiltered, not the polished stuff she told the press. This was Diana in her truest form, heartbroken, grieving, terrified, and brave. She wrote about Charles. And get this, she didn't lash out. She wrote, "I think I loved him more than he could ever return." Can you imagine? That kind of heartbreak? Love cannot survive in a palace built on silence. That line hit William like a dagger, but the hardest part, her pain as a mother. She was worried sick about William and Harry. "My boys are so young," she wrote. "An institution is shaping them before they can even find their own voices." She felt guilt. "I fear I've failed them, not because I didn't love them, but because I wasn't allowed to be their mother the way I needed to be." Are you crying yet? Because I am. Then it got darker. Diana started writing about the future, and it wasn't paranoia. It was like prophecy. "If anything happens to me," she wrote, "they will say it was an accident. But I know too much, and I speak too freely." She was scared. She was being watched. She saw darkness disguised as tradition. She warned, "The crown won't protect my sons. The world would praise them, but never understand them." William was shaking as he read. And just when he thought it couldn't get worse, the diary's tone changed. It turned strategic, calculated. This wasn't just a grieving mother anymore. This was a woman on a mission. She was documenting everything, naming names, listing meetings she was excluded from, people who froze her out, conversations that stopped when she walked in. She wasn't just emotional. She was observant. And she knew who was leaking stories to the tabloids. Oh yes, Diana named them. Senior aides. Royal advisors. Some smiles were masks, she wrote. "I trusted too easily." She had allies too. An investigative journalist, a discreet lawyer, a security contact. They helped her hide documents, make phone calls from payphones, and meet in underground parking lots. Honey, this was not a diary. This was a cold case file. And 3 days before she died, she wrote, "If something happens to me, this will explain everything. Tell my boys that I tried, that I was not perfect, but I was awake. I did not tiptoe." William read those words over and over again. And that's when he found the part about Harry. It was one single line that hit like a truck. "I've told Harry the truth. He must carry it until he's ready." What? What truth? Diana had told Harry something William wasn't allowed to know. Something big. Something that made her choose one son over the other in a way that William never saw coming. She said Harry was strong, defiant, that he would survive outside the palace walls. William? He was being raised for the throne, for tradition. And when William confronted Harry, Harry said, "I always thought she told you too." Faux confession. Just heartbreak. Diana had divided her sons with love, but left behind a secret that tore them apart. And that's when William knew this wasn't just about grief anymore. This was about truth, about legacy, about a system that nearly destroyed their mother. And baby, we are just getting started. The deeper William went into that diary, the more it felt like his whole life had been a lie, crafted, polished, and handed to him like a royal script. But Diana? Oh, Diana wasn't reading from the script anymore. She had torn it up and started writing her own story. She documented everything. Names, times, places, conversations. It was like a private investigator's notebook, only it was written by a mother who knew she was running out of time. They were 4 senior courtiers she mentioned again and again. And when William saw their names, he froze, because some of them William were still around, still advising the family, still smiling at events, still shaking hands with world leaders. But now, William knew who they really were, and the rage, oh, it hit him like a wave. Not the kind you shout out loud, no, this was silent, simmering, son of Diana rage. His mother had been right. She wasn't paranoid, she was perceptive. They said she was unstable, but she was focused. They called her emotional, but she was fighting for her life. And William? He was finally seeing it all for what it was. But then came the twist nobody expected. Amid all the pain, all the betrayal, there was one unexpected shift in Diana's writing, and it was about Charles. Yes, Charles, her ex-husband. The man the world saw as cold and distant. The man she once said never gave her love back. But deep in her diary, tucked between pages of sorrow and strategy, Diana wrote about moments. A letter Charles sent her in '96, a quiet conversation at a charity event in early '97. White lilies, her favorite, left at her door with no name. I think they were from him, she wrote, but I was too angry to ask. She began to wonder, had they both just built walls too high? By the time we tried to climb them, we forgot why they were built at all. She even said it. Maybe we were both victims of the same machine. Let that sink in. Diana, the woman the world saw as heartbroken, was finally admitting Charles was broken too. Raised in Diddy, taught to hide his feelings, praised for silence, punished for softness. And suddenly William didn't just see his father, he understood him. The father he resented for so long, now he saw him as a fellow prisoner. By the time William reached the later pages, Diana's tone had sharpened again. She stopped writing as a mother or a wife. She started writing like a woman on the edge of something huge. She called it out, the media conspiracy. Diana laid it all bare. The headlines, the stories, the sources close to the palace, it was all orchestrated. She described how palace insiders, some of the very people she'd once trusted, were feeding stories to the press. Carefully timed leaks, photos taken out of context, conversations twisted beyond recognition. They need a villain, she wrote, and I play the role well. She wasn't just being attacked. She was being engineered into a problem. And the most painful part? The betrayal. Stylists, friends, charity partners, people she had let into her life were turning around and selling her out. For headlines, for royal favor, for money. Trust is a currency they all trade, she wrote, and I keep running out. William read those words with his jaw clenched because he had seen it too with Catherine. He'd watched the same cycle start again. Tabloid rumors, cropped photos, anonymous palace sources, and Harry and Meghan? Oh, don't even get started. They were ripped apart. Suddenly, it all made sense. This wasn't just a pattern, it was a machine. And Diana was its first real casualty. And just when you think it can't get more heartbreaking, William finds one last secret. At the very back of the diary, the leather cover felt off, like it was hiding something. And oh, it was. Inside was a folded, yellowed sheet. Just one. Faded ink. No date. It was titled, "To My Sons." That was it. No grand heading, just her final thoughts. And you guys, it wasn't a royal message, it wasn't political, it was a mother's goodbye. If you are reading this, then I didn't get to say all I wanted to, she wrote. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the pressure you'll inherit, for the walls you'll walk within, and for the parts of me you didn't get to know. William couldn't breathe. She wasn't blaming. She wasn't explaining. She was just loving him. From beyond the grave. I made choices to survive, she wrote. Some were right, some were not. But every step I took was to give you a future with more honesty than I had. And her final gift? Words of wisdom. Don't let the crown steal your kindness. Don't become so polished that the world can't see your soul. Power will try to make you distant. Stay human. And then, her final line, I believe one day you will change it all. The sentence just ends. No period. Just a smudge of ink, like she'd paused mid-thought and never got the chance to finish. William held it to his chest. He cried, not just for the loss, but for the promise. After reading that unfinished letter, those last words from a mother who knew she wouldn't get to say goodbye, William sat in silence. The room around him, once Diana's sanctuary, felt like a tomb now, but in his heart, a fire had been lit. Diana had started something, and it wasn't over. So what did William do? He didn't call the press. There was no Netflix documentary, no flashy speech, no bombshell interview. Instead, he moved quietly, strategically, like his mother had done. He picked a handful of people, trusted, loyal, unshakable, And to each of them, he gave a piece of her diary, just enough to start asking questions, just enough to start digging. And slowly, change began. One by one, those same courtiers Diana feared, gone. Retired, reassigned, pushed out, no scandal, no noise. But inside the palace, oh, they knew. Him was no longer just the heir, he was Diana's son, and he was cleaning house. But there was still one piece left unsettled: Harry. That phone call wasn't easy. Years of tension, misunderstanding, headlines, distance, hurt. But William picked up the phone, not as the future king, as her son. He told Harry about the letter, about the diary, about the truth he finally understood. He apologized for the silence, for the resentment, for not knowing what Harry had been carrying all those years. And Harry, he listened. They cried, they remembered, they talked about her like she was just mum again, not the people's princess, just the woman who kissed their foreheads and held their hands. No crowns, no palace, just grief. And in that call, something shifted. The crack between the brothers, it didn't magically disappear, but it stopped growing. They made a promise to protect her legacy, to not let it fade into flowers and speeches, to make it mean something. William began showing up differently, not just in private, publicly. Royal tours became less formal, less scripted. He shook hands longer, held babies closer, laughed more honestly. When he spoke, it wasn't just about charity, it was about humanity. The icy polish the monarchy had worn for generations, it started to melt. Because finally, someone inside the crown was leading with soul. And behind it all, Diana's words. That little diary, once hidden behind a false panel, was now his secret compass. He even had it bound, not for show, not for history, just for him. He placed it in a small glass case in his study, not to forget, but to remember. You did not die in vain, he whispered the first time he opened it again. You showed me the cracks, now I will mend them. And that, right there, is the moment everything changed. The girl who once danced barefoot through the palace hallways, the woman who cried behind closed doors, the mother who feared her sons would be eaten alive by a machine she barely escaped. She wasn't gone. She was heard. And her voice, it's now moving through her son. Not with rebellion, with reform. William isn't tearing the monarchy down. He's slowly, carefully remaking it into something Diana once dreamed of. Where truth isn't punished, where emotions aren't weakness, where crowns don't cover up wounds, they heal them. And that's not just a royal story. It's a human one that reminds us that sometimes healing starts in the silence, in a forgotten room, with a letter never meant to be read. So if you felt something reading this, if Diana's words touched something inside you, don't let it stay here. Like, share, subscribe. Because her story was never about fairy tales or crowns, it was about truth, and truth deserves a voice. Her light never dimmed, it was just waiting to be seen.